We'll talk about the AOC thread that you guys wanted me to cover, which is apparently she had like two people that are openly Zionists talking about anti-Semitism. Thread on AOC's disastrous live stream yesterday on anti-Semitism. The live stream begins with AOC introducing Stacey Burdett and Amy Spitalnik, both Zionists, as foremost experts on anti-Semitism, setting the stage for them to define anti-Semitism for everyone. Also notice how AOC hedges to say Israeli government, not Israel, and uses qualifying words as inherently and necessarily. What?
In a minute, we're going to be hearing from two of some of the most foremost experts in the country in fighting anti-Semitism in America. And before we get to that panel, though, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this, and most importantly, why we're doing it now. Anti-Semitism, hate, and violence against Jews because of their identity is real, and it is dangerous. It is also important to say here in this moment and during that conversation that criticism of the Israeli government is not inherently anti-Semitic, and criticism of Zionism is not automatically anti-Semitic. Also important to say,
what's wrong with
in this moment and during that conversation, that criticism of the Israeli government is not inherently anti-Semitic, and criticism of Zionism is not automatically anti-Semitic.
Let's continue. I'm sure it gets worse. There's no way that this is the major criticism that people have.
That being true does not mean that we should not recognize when criticism and when that criticism crosses a line into real harms against our Jewish community.
AOC introduces Amy Spitalnik, who's the CEO of GCPA, a lobbying group. More about that later. Amy says that anti-Semitism on the left is more painful than Charlottesville, that since 10/7, there's been a lot of anti-Semitism in progressive spaces. This right here is infinitely worse than this. I don't know why Scarlet Red, who's a chatter and also a prolific tweeter, didn't start off with this, because this is nutty, okay? Her statements here, however, as the starting point, okay, this right here, this entire 59-second clip is not bad at all. It's good. It's very good, okay? She starts off the conversation perfectly fine. That since 10/7, there's been a lot of anti-Semitism in progressive spaces. List of things she says are anti-Semitic while AOC nods along. Celebration of 10/7, embrace of Hamas, chanting for another 10/7, calling for Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth, targeting Jewish institutions, Zionist institutions, exclusion of Zionists from events, BDS banning Hillel on campus. BDS is not anti-Semitic, but plenty of these things can be absolutely anti-Semitic. What the are we talking about? Let me go through it. I want to see what she says. Some of these things are not like the others. I think the indecent part about this is to say BDS is anti-Semitic alongside like calling for Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth.
And it's used ultimately to target not just Jews, but so many other communities to advance dehumanizing policies and to ultimately undercut our democracy, as we'll talk about. What's harder for us as progressives to recognize or understand is when anti-Semitism shows up and is normalized in our own spaces. And I want to be frank here. There is very real anti-Semitism that...
Here's how I would have run this. I would have never invited someone who is even remotely Zionist to a conversation like this. And I would 1000% have the person that would speak on this be someone like a JVP person. You know what I mean? There are a million anti-Zionist Jews in this country, especially in her district, especially in New York, okay? Anti-Zionist Jews are way more prominent in New York than they are in Los Angeles. And there are plenty of anti-Zionist Jews in Los Angeles as well. Why wouldn't you bring up a Jewish Voice for Peace person to speak on these issues who will absolutely cover this with the nuance that it deserves and will not make blanket statements utilizing, you know, the very real way in which people will sometimes absolutely mask criticisms of Israel with actual anti-Semitic sentiment. That's the real problem here. The real problem here is just simply not having a person, even if it's not JVP, then if not now, exactly. But no, I don't think JVP is too radical for this. I think JVP is perfect for this. But if not now is another group that is less radical than JVP and still would be better. But if your expectation is that like now that she has this person on as the formative expert on anti-Semitism that she's going to start dunking on her, you're out of your mind.
And over the last 8 months, in certain ways, for me, it's been almost more personally painful to see what's happening in my own progressive community than, for example, what I saw in Charlottesville, because it's happening in my own community.
Yeah, she's not saying it's worse than Charlottesville, okay? She's not. She's saying that it hurts more to see people that she sees as allies say things that she considers anti-Semitic. Now, obviously, that's wrong. That's still wrong, because the things that she considers to be anti-Semitic, which she will explain in a second, are either cynically or hysterically being being attributed to anti-Semitism when some of the things that she's going to mention, as long as that tweet is true, are not anti-Semitic inherently.
Eliminationist rhetoric, calling for Israel or Israelis or Jews to be wiped off the face of the earth. Targeting Jews or Jewish institutions here for the actions of the Israeli government. My own synagogue was targeted in the fall.
Okay, none of the things that she mentioned so far is incorrect. Targeting Jewish institutions, specifically because they're Jewish, is anti-Semitic. There was a Yiddish learning center or whatever that was like painted up and they're not wrong. They just didn't happen. No, you are wrong. They do happen. What are you talking about? I need someone to understand something here, okay? Real anti-Semitic acts in times of Israel's offensive campaigns in the West, it happens and it increases. The reason why I criticize the ADL isn't just because they cynically weaponize and dilute real anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. It's also because they're supposed to be the people that are actually combating anti-Semitism, but because their major goal is to defend the apartheid, they end up weaponizing anti-Zionism and claiming anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic across the board. However, that doesn't change the reality that there are anti-Semitic incidents that occur in times of Israel's offensive campaigns. This is real. I've mentioned this a million times over.
No two Jewish Americans have the same relationship with Israel. Some have no relationship, but the vast majority of Jewish Americans, about 90% according to recent polls, do have a relationship with Israel, do believe that Israel should exist, that Jews should have a homeland and a place that is deeply tied with our history.
There it is.
People, even if we fundamentally disagree with the Israeli government and its policies.
There it is. Okay, so yeah, every time you criticize Zionists, you're criticizing all Jews. This person, Amy Spitalnik, is literally doing the thing that I was just talking about, how Zionists breed anti-Semitic opinions in the Western world. That is inherently an unimaginable harmful thing. You are willingly associating 90% of Jews with the actions of the state of Israel. Normal people that watch that are going to go, what the especially if you have never encountered a Jewish person and only know Jewish people from television, okay? And many people in America have not. Not everyone in America lives in New York or Los Angeles. So obviously, when you have never encountered a Jewish person, you've never met an anti-Zionist Jewish person, for example, you're going to hear that and go, well, okay, this person literally has Jewish in the name of the lobbying group that she is the CEO of. She has to be the foremost authority. She's saying 90% of Jews love Israel and associate with Israel and associate with Zionism, which is wrong inherently. Never met a Jewish person? Dog, it ain't a rare Pokemon. Bro, your name is Ohio Riz Sigma, okay? Do you understand? There are 15 million Jews on the planet total. What the are you talking about? There are so many places, including in Ohio, where there are hella people who have never encountered a Jewish person in the wild, okay? This goes for any matter of bigoted opinions. There are people who don't encounter black people in the wild, okay? What are we talking about in the United States of America?
That's what Zionism is, despite how muddied the word has gotten in the public conversation.
She's literally saying, oh, having any association with Israel is Zionism. Like if you have family members in Israel, that's Zionism. You're a Zionist. That's ridiculous, dude. In my mind, this is unironically no different than like a Muslim person in the Western world being like, ISIS defends Islam and it's in the name and it's a good thing. And if you are on ISIS, then you are Islamophobic. It is ridiculous. Some of you are puritanical lunatics. Is she wrong? Most Jews in the U.S. believe Israel should exist. That's not incorrect. Let the woman talk for sake. The word has gotten muddy. She's not saying that. That's absurdly uncharitable, Hasan. Come on. She is a PR person for Zionism in Israel. Like, it's not. She's very clearly using real existing anti-Semitism in an argument to make it seem like Zionism, in the most like charitable terms, she's trying to still conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism.
It's a belief that there should be a Jewish homeland. And for me, that goes hand in hand with Palestinian self-determination, two states side by side. And so not all anti-Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic, but a litmus test for Jews, 90% of whom have a relationship with Israel, that says you have to leave that relationship at the door if you want to come into these coalitions, that is.
Yeah, that's crazy. Hey guys, I'm sorry, but if you want to come into progressive spaces and you literally defend Rhodesia, you're not a progressive. If you want to come into progressive spaces and, you know, all of these people think that like America's war on terror was actually awesome, then you're not a progressive. Like, what the do you mean? Like, well, what are you talking about? Hey, I'm sorry. I'm doing a bodies and spaces. I need to come to the PSL meeting, but I also think that America's actions globally have been good. I need to come into this progressive space, but also simultaneously I'm defending the apartheid regime of South Africa. I have a connection to it. I have a connection to apartheid South Africa. Sorry, it's really up and anti-South African of you. It's anti-white behavior. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous assessment to make. What the hell does a relationship with Israel mean? That's a great question. That is an intentionally vague way to muddy the waters when you are trying to engage a defense of Zionism. That's what I'm frustrated with. A relationship with Israel can mean any number of things. I have a relationship with Israel. I have had Israeli chatters on. I've had Israeli Knesset members on. I have a relationship with Israel. Does that mean I'm pro-Israel or a Zionist? No, it's ridiculous. It is a completely ridiculous, very intentionally vague way to try to say like, well, 90% of Jews have a relationship with Israel. Okay. What matters is what percentage of Jews under the age of 35, for example, think that Israel's actions are bad? What percentage of Jews under the age of 35, for example, think that there should be a ceasefire?
And we see it in calls to ban or boycott Zionists, like these lists of Jewish authors or artists that are making the round. We're seeing it during Pride Month, where in certain spaces, Jews have been told.
Yeah, no, I think saying Zionists out of pride is perfectly valid. What do you mean? And also beyond that, saying that like certain artists are Zionists and that you want to boycott them. Yeah, what she played fast and loose there. And what Zionist means Jew. How do you counter people who say anti-Zionist Jews and pro-Palestine protests are being tokenized? I've heard people say it's only like 10% of Jewish people, but they're being tokenized like black conservatives like Candace Owens. Yeah, it's gross and it's disgusting for a multitude of different reasons. One, it's not just 10%. And two, it doesn't matter because Candace Owens is defending white supremacy, okay? A reactionary ideology. Jews who are on the right side of history in terms of Israel's apartheid being considered tokens is ridiculous, especially because if history does have a slant towards progress, everyone else will, you know, remember their actions very differently in this time and what they said now, 20 years down the line. My dad sent me this article which calls Theodore Marone, the Holocaust labor camp survivor who was on the IC panel to recommend arrest, a token Jew. So yeah, tokenism argument at that point. Yeah, it was pretty insane, dude. It's like saying white people that stood side by side with black people during the civil rights protests where they were in the minority were being tokenized. Okay. Yeah. Sucks to suck. Okay. They were on the right side of history and many people will turn around and claim that they were on the right side of history. 33% of American Jews think Israel's doing a genocide. That's 1/3 of American Jews agree Israel committed genocide in Gaza. Over 51% of American Jews support Biden's decision to withhold arms shipments to Israel, survey finds. That is nutty, dude. Stable universities, several countries. When asked about support for Israel, the state after the protest, 33% said their support increased. 43% said it remained the same. 23% two-state solution. 60% of respondents considered a two-state solution as the best way to peace with varying conditions related to demilitarization and recognition of Israel as a Jewish state. Negotiations for peace have been stalled since 2014. But isn't Anadolu and Erdogan propaganda media? All Turkish media is Erdogan propaganda media. It's like Al Jazeera being propaganda for the Qatar government. Doesn't matter. This is Western coverage.
Ultimately calling for the vast majority of Jewish Americans to be banned or boycotted and eliminated. And that is effectively...
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. When I say BDS is good, I mean like kill all the American Jews. That's insane. It is pretty crazy to like have to deal with this level of hysteria, okay? Whether it's valid or not. If it's valid, it's hysterical. If it's cynical, then, you know, it's cynical.
A form of anti-Semitism, and what that does is ultimately divide Jews from the very coalitions, the very spaces we all need to be in right now.
And I think the point that you make too about the muddying.
Why is AOC just chilling? What the f is she supposed to do? Is she supposed to be like, you're out of your mind to the CEO of the Jewish Council of Public Affairs that she has on here to talk about anti-Semitism being on the rise? No, this was already a job from the start.
They engage in different definitions of this term, utilizing it in different ways, and that then creates an opening in a spectrum here.
Amy Spitali continues that exclusion of Zionists by progressive movements is anti-Semitic and dangerous to democracy. AOC does not push back, instead agrees. Yeah, that's ridiculous. But since she did, the least she could do is push back. You guys don't understand. The reason why she's having this conversation is literally so that you'd be like, no, see, I'm doing the right thing. Please don't yell at me and call me an anti-Semite and dump, I don't know, millions of dollars into any number of different races. She should have never done this. I think that she should have had a seminar on anti-Semitism for sure. I mean, that's perfectly valid. Anti-Semitism is a bigotry. Oftentimes that bigotry, especially when we're not talking about like Israel's actions, that bigotry oftentimes comes from, it is a canary in the coal mine for fascism in general. It's just like, she should have never done this. Should have never done this.
It continues to threaten all communities' rights and safety and undercut our democracy. And so too, in sort of a constant feedback loop.
Yeah, it's true, dude. If you don't have Zionists in every space, then democracy is under threat.
Right.
AOC asked Stacey Burdett, who is working with the United States Holocaust Museum that endorses the RA definition of anti-Semitism and ADL, how to oppose the Netanyahu government without being anti-Semitic.
Empathy and care and inclusion cannot be limited only to Jews who reject Zionism. To me, those are part of my community, friends and colleagues, and progressive Jewish groups are doing more good work than ever fighting anti-Semitism. But still, excluding Jews who believe there should be a Jewish homeland is excluding most Jews for whom it's just a feature.
Yeah. No, definitely. This is why I always say Zionism is so anti-Semitic. You don't understand. Inherently, Jews have a bone in their brain that says they have to have an ethno-state, literally constantly doing apartheid and killing people. Like, you don't get it, okay? You don't get it. Like, we just have to have that. So, like, it is an intrinsic value to Judaism. And therefore, if you say that, like, this opinion is bad and wrong and has no space in, like, progressive circles, then you're being anti-Semitic. It's an insane statement, dude. Like, what the are you saying? What are you saying? What an insane statement to make. Do you understand? Excluding Jews who believe that there should be a Jewish homeland, there's only one place that she's talking about, and that is Israel. And that accompanies all of the actions of Israel. Intentionally vague ways of defining Israel does not change that reality, okay? We do not here in this community, at least I, have never stated that there cannot be some kind of connection to Israel or anything like that. I myself have mentioned that there can be connections to Israel. That does not mean you're inherently a Zionist or whatever. But it is not a part of someone's identity to be like, no, you don't understand. Rhodesia is my identity. Or the segregation in the South is my identity. South African whites want an apartheid that is a part of the Boer identity. And therefore, those who defend these kinds of unjustifiable constructs, those who believe in these unequal constructs, these incredibly violent, oppressive constructs, have to not be excluded. Otherwise, you are the racist, is ridiculous. And the only way you can't comprehend that or you can't see that is if you also personally think that there is not like all that much wrong with it.
Envisioning a world without a Jewish homeland is terrifying for a group of people who've been banished and expelled. And calling every single Jew who yearns for a refuge or a homeland a racist, that causes harm. It's not in service to...
Yeah, I hate this so much, bro. Weaponizing the Holocaust to do genocide is so freakish. It is a foundational plank of Zionism. You know, a lot of Zionists do legitimately subscribe to this. It's pretty funny because like Nazis literally used to take advantage of liberals' dumb tendencies of, you know, freedom of speech is one of the foundational planks of American democracy. Like, why won't you let me have my free speech? That's literally what Nazis used to use all the goddamn time. And it's so funny to see Zionists like very quickly apply that exact same tactic here.
And so that requires us to do the hard work to understand how in disagreeing over policies and protesting vehemently, we don't cross that line into harm, into eliminationist rhetoric, into anti-Semitism, and that we also not allow legitimate concerns and fears about anti-Semitism to be exploited to advance a broader extremist agenda that seeks to pit our communities against one another and undermine our fundamental democracy and our liberal values.
Yeah, the only world where Jews are safe is when Jews' neighbors are safe, except you must be really critical of Israel then. Anti-Zionist, actually. I can't believe how she just dropped that in this conversation. A commonly shared opinion amongst anti-Zionists is literally what she just said. Look, there were early Zionism adjacent Jews who pushed for a Jewish homeland as a genuinely binational and egalitarian idea. Buber, Arendt, Brit Shalom. Think what you may of them. At the same time, I'm also not so fucking delusional. Think some imaginary alternate essence of Zionism means when the way Zionism is manifested for 100 plus years has been ethno-nationalism and colonialism. Existence precedes essence. If Zionism is always manifested like this, then this is Zionism. Yes. Einstein's sentiment now would be literally called token Jew by Zionists. Einstein, who once was propped up to be the president of Israel, okay, that Einstein, Albert Einstein, literally was saying, like, you can't do a Jewish homeland, guys. You can't do that. We have to live with our Arab neighbors. What the fuck are you doing? You are doing Nazi shit. Einstein's sentiment now, if expressed by an American Jew in 2024, is seen as like you're being tokenized.
So, Amy, to you, what does allyship look like to you in this moment? And what are the stakes for our democracy in that allyship right now?
I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. Like, we are in the middle of a genocide, which she correctly has called a genocide. That doesn't mean you should let anti-Semitism run wild, as I am very careful about that sort of thing and will stamp it anywhere I see it. Having said that, however, you are not going to catch me doing PR for Zionists. Like, that's ridiculous. We're going to defend the identity of Judaism by allowing people to cynically tie it back to a racist apartheid ethno-state doing a genocide. Expect people not to go, well, what am I supposed to think then?
Being an ally to the Jewish community right now doesn't mean that we're asking you to put an Israeli flag on your front door or support every action of the Israeli government.
Just the ones that I want you to shut the up about. You know, you don't have to put an Israeli flag on your door, but you need to shut the up about this like apartheid genocide
And grief that our community is experiencing following the deadliest day for our people since the Holocaust. Pain and grief that we're still in because there are hostages that remain, because the war is ongoing. It means calling for the hostages to be released alongside the other policy changes that you want to see, recognizing that.
That's so funny. I would love to hear what she has to say about Israel being an apartheid. Like, do you agree that Israel's an apartheid? Do you agree with the Human Rights Watch, Israeli organization B'Tselem, and Amnesty International that Israel's an apartheid? It's that simple. I would just love to hear what you have to say. It is such an easy conversation finisher, because if you don't, then, you know, we're on entirely different planets. You are not living on planet Earth. AOC's elves have a special way of brain breaking you. Wait, what? Guys, you can't be serious, right? It's 3 hours and 39 minutes into the broadcast, and I spent the last hour literally complaining about this thing that AOC did, probably to capitulate to like the Democratic Party, to make sure that she doesn't get absolutely destroyed, loser committee positions or whatever. And I still think it was a bad thing that she did, and openly ripped into it, and you still think it's not sufficient. Like, if you demand that I hate AOC unconditionally and become a Jimmy Dore style commentator, it's just not gonna work. Okay, y'all are dumb as